Thank you.
Okay, Zach, we are at 4:15 and I see that you've joined here. If you can, just give us a slow count to 5 so we can pin your video.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sounds good. We're ready to go, everybody. Go ahead with your questions.
Coach, this is another year, but you had so much talent to begin with. Was this roster cut more difficult than the previous years?
I think it's always difficult for a number of reasons. Those can change from year to year. Different position battles you got brewing. You got to balance injuries into the equation sometimes on how you're going to manage all that. But this year felt very similar to most years, and it's tough to break bad news to some guys. It's fun to give good news to others, but I do feel good about where the roster's at right now.
Thank you.
Coach, the roster, this is the initial roster, but there's still maybe some tweaking that's going to be taking place over the next few days. So how much of that do you anticipate?
It's hard to predict. We'll certainly spend our time looking at the wire tonight. We're very late in the process there at 31. So, I think last year we claimed 2 guys and we had the fifth spot. So it becomes a little more difficult the further down you are, but certainly we'll make sure we're aware of the landscape of who's out there and be ready to make decisions if we need to.
Zach, what came of the decision of Kevin over Drew?
I think Kevin's had a really strong last couple of weeks of camp. He's been consistent. We know we're getting there. Again, we think we've got a strong football team, and he brings the consistency to that we're aware of, and we think he'll do a really good job for us.
Coach, how hard did Kwame Lassiter and Kendrick Pryor and Trent Irwin, for that matter, make it on you as you were making these decisions in that wide receiver room?
I think anytime, whether there's been a pass where we've kept anywhere from 5 to 7 receivers, there's a lot of positions like that where the guys are trying to do the number count, predict how many we'll keep. And so it's never fun breaking that news, but those guys have certainly had strong camps for us. They do what we ask them to do. I think Troy does a really good job managing that group and helping all those guys get better. And they understand that. And so certainly, if the practice squad works out for those guys, we'll willingly continue to work with them.
Coach, so Alan George becomes the latest rendition of it doesn't matter how you get there, it's what you do once you get there. I mean, Alan George just was consistent and got better every day, I guess.
I agree with that. I think he had a strong last couple weeks of camp and continued to make plays when his number was called, got his hand on the ball a number of times. And I think that just continues really what Duke and the scouting department have done here with their eye for undrafted talent. They do a really good job of putting us in a good position to acquire some of those guys and then bringing in the right ones that have a chance to make the roster. And there's just a history over a number of years, again, well before I got here, of undrafted guys getting an opportunity here and making the most of it.
Zach, who do you plan on carrying through to IR once you are able to do that?
The Khalid Kareem and Cam Taylor Britt would be 2 guys that tomorrow that will be processed.
Zach, how do you feel about the depth along the offensive line now, and how critical of a period is it now between now and the opening of the season to add some depth there?
There's, guys that have consistently improved. I think there's still room for growth there. It's a number of guys that we've invested in and we certainly feel good about the roles that those guys can play and that we're backed up at the right spots. But I would continue to say there's room for growth there from those guys. And really the guys that are all filling those depth spots are young guys that we think are going to continue to ascend. And so we're looking forward to seeing that.
Zach, are you hoping to be able to get Michael Thomas, the wide receiver, back?
Yes.
Coach, how tough is it to I mean, you're picking at 31. I mean, it's doesn't get much tougher than that. What, is there any alternatives you're looking at to try and get some, maybe, some more upgrades?
Well, aside from the waiver wire, it's just the vested veterans, that you have options at. So again, Duke and his staff will spend the entire evening and morning surveying that land and making sure we're positioned to attack any position that we feel like can help us. Anybody that's out there that we feel like can help us, they really do a good job and have a good knack for that. So we'll just see what shakes free tomorrow, and if anything that interests us.
I guess this is a two-part question about the tight end room, but are you guys encouraged that Cam Sample and Wilcox will be back soon? And is that why you guys didn't make another move there? Or are you still looking to maybe potentially add a tight end with their injury situation?
Yeah, I feel good about, we're not going to move Cam Sample over to tight end, but Drew Sample, I think is going to continue to improve. And, he's really attacked his rehab the right way. We're encouraged by it. It's hard to predict where that's going to be here tomorrow. But I feel good about the progress that he's making and hopeful. And then you mentioned Mitch Wilcox as well, so we'll have to see how Mitch goes over this next week or so. So there's a lot of different standard elevations now that can take place to help you get you through a game or two as well. And that's something we'll just continue to evaluate.
Zach, with Jesse's situation, he's currently still on the commissioner's list, I presume.
Yeah, we get another day with him on that list.
Okay, and how did that help you through this process, if at all?
Yeah, it helps you. It helps you carry another body and not have to make a move there. So just really just lucky, in some ways that Jesse was as late as he was. So we got these 2 weeks, and it does help you get through this 54-man roster initially. So that's one of the silver linings to how that situation played out.
Just to clarify, Zach, one more thing real quick. You said one more day with him on that list, did you say?
Yeah, the exact timing allows us to get through tomorrow. Don't hold me to exactly when that's got to be processed, but it's in the next day or two.
Okay, thank you.
Does he need to be activated to fully practice?
No, he's good at practice. He just couldn't dress for the game. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. So he technically practiced last week. We just held him out of the team drills, but he did individual. So he was practicing last week.
So Coach, Travion Williams just basically earned himself a roster spot to keep 4 running backs at this point. I guess you have to just tip your cap to him, everything he did.
I agree with that. It's not every year that we'll keep 4 backs. I thought Travion's approach has been really solid over the last spring and this fall, to where, as you're debating where to put that spot and who's earned it, that Travion has earned it and like the direction that he's heading. And so again, we'll let him continue to find a role with us, but just really pleased with the job that Travion's done over the last couple of months.
Coach, a lot of talk is about, players getting bad news or you having to make that difficult call. But for position coaches, how tough is it on them? A lot of times you can only keep so many guys at so many positions.
They invest a lot into these guys and trying to make them better, trying to get the most out of them. So to be a part of that process where, they've got to share in bad news with these guys is never fun. You're pulling for them, whether it's here or somebody else. We really did have a good group of guys, particularly this final 80 guys. There's none that you didn't like having around. And so, those select number of guys that aren't going to be able to be here, you do hope that they get another opportunity somewhere else, and we're pulling for those guys.
Thank you.
Zach, this has obviously not been ideal for Cam Taylor-Britt's start here. What is the plan? How can you work him in to get the reps you need behind the scenes to feel comfortable getting him be able to maybe contribute for you at some point this year?
Yeah, it's going to have to be rehab work, because we can't on the field work with these guys until they're off that IR list, and so there's a 21-day activation window that happens after the 4 weeks, but during those 4 weeks, it's got to be strictly rehab and just meetings. So I will tell you this about Cam. His approach has been really good since this happened. He's here early in the morning, getting his stuff done. He meets extra. He's doing everything that we ask him to do. So I'm optimistic that when his time does come, that he's able to come off the list, that he'll be ready and doing everything that he possibly could have done to put himself in a position to go compete and get some playing time.
Is there a ballpark or best case scenario for when he could be back?
Everything has been going well. And so I don't want to make that prediction. We know it's going to be at least 4 weeks into the season. But I would say that so far so good with him. And it's all been positive with his rehab so far.
And same with Batchy. I know it's at least 4 weeks. Where is he in his rehab?
Yeah, Bocce's right there on the cusp. And so we think that these 4 weeks will really put him over the edge. Even the 4 weeks doesn't quite put him to 9 months recovery, but he's looked really good. And so, we'll utilize these next couple weeks to make sure that he's really feeling good when he's able to come off that PUP list after 4 weeks.
How
Zach, you looked like you took an extended look at Chris Evans in that last preseason game. What are you hoping to see out of him and his role develop now that you've got a good look at it throughout training camp?
Just needs experience. He really over the last couple of years hasn't gotten a lot of work, on first and second down stuff. And so you get an opportunity in these training camp games to utilize that as his experience. And he's obviously gotten some returns for us. We've used him in a specific role on offense so far. But these preseason games are the ones that you really get a chance to evaluate him and Travion and get him carries, get him protection reps, get him a chance to do all the things that we asked Joe and Samaje to do to see if how capable they are of handling that load if needed.
Is that maybe part of a plan to maybe kind of reduce the usage for Mixon, maybe because he's been primarily the guy that you used on first and second downs the last couple of years?
Yeah, we don't have a great plan to reduce Mixon's workload. I think Joe is he's prepared to take on that load and does a really good job of it. And again, we feel really good about where Joe's at and trying to get the most out of him.
Zach, how close did Jake Browning make it with Brandon Allen? How tough was that competition in the end?
Yeah, Jake did a really good job of putting him in a position to be in the conversation. I really like what Jake is about, his approach to the game. You can start to see his comfort level continue to grow the more reps he got. It's hard for these guys that don't play in games, a number of games over the last several years, to finally get back into the rhythm that they probably had when they were at Washington and in high school and all the things that you know about him. So I think that he's continued to improve and, that he's got a bright future in this league.
Coach, what injury did Desmond Noel suffer? What's he dealing with?
Desmond,
I just saw injured on the release.
yeah,
That's
it was
all.
a
And I didn't know he was-
lower body injury. Yeah, I'd have to find my
Gotcha.
injury report.
Gotcha.
Coach, I know you were-
Huber, with Huber, did you make that call or did Darren make the call to let him know? I mean, there had to have been a little bit of doubt in his mind.
Who called him, you're saying?
Yeah, who let him know and what was his reaction?
Yeah, Darren, I let Darren handle that. We have a rule here. Anytime you've been with someone for over 10 years, you get to be the one to have those conversations. So, I let Darren handle that one.
Zach, do you have a sense for, whether it did or didn't play into the decision at all? Do you have a sense for how special Kevin's longevity is, both in this league and with this franchise, how special that is for, just his longevity?
It's difficult to be that consistent over a long period of time. And, there's certainly luck involved there as well, in terms of an injury history and all the things that play into that. And so he's put himself in a really good position to have the career that he's had. It's an incredible story for someone that's grown up here and played their college ball here and were drafted here. And, that's a neat part of it. That's not what we base our decisions on, but now that we're here, it is good for him. But he's just been a really consistent piece for us. He was voted a captain last year. There's a lot of things that play into this that he's should be commended for the job that he's done over however many years he's been here.
Coach, do you have a formula for your practice squad? Okay, this number at this position, this number at that position, or is it just the best players, the clear waivers you're going to bring back? And if it's overloaded at a position, so be it?
With the expanded roster, it makes it easier to take the guys because you're generally covered at most of the positions. I'd say previously, when it was 10 guys, yeah, certainly. You'd really have to be mindful to carry the right amount of O linemen, D linemen, and just skilled bodies that could cover multiple positions for you in the practice squad. Now that it's expanded to 16, you've got more flexibility to make sure that you're covered at certain spots, but at the same time allow for the next best players just to be on the team.
That kind of going back to what you were saying about Cam Taylor-Britt and just not being able to do a whole lot other than rehab with him. How happy are you that you guys were able to kind of, not that you stumbled upon it, but the way you were able to get Trey Flowers to help you guys out last year and to have him be, that reliable backup behind Cheeto and Eli, kind of knowing he's got the game experience you need and injuries often just happen.
Yeah, I think that's we're really fortunate how that played out. And then to re-sign Trey in free agency and him want to come back, he played a very specific role for us last year. I've been really pleased with Trey's training camp. I think he's a lot more comfortable in our scheme. And so now, you get to utilize him more as a backup corner as well, not just that utility role that he played for us last year. And been really pleased with Trey's approach. Trey's great in our locker room. Guys really like being around him. He's got a great personality and attitude. And I think that he's had a really, really good training camp as well. And he's in a big position to help us this year.
Zach,
Zach, was there anyone that you called today to let them know that they made the team, that maybe they were unsure if they were going to make it or not, that had that little extra bit of excitement or, had a really great reaction?
Alan George, it's, for an undrafted free agent, to be in that position, there's that uncertainty there. But he was certainly grateful. He's a very mature rookie. His approach has been phenomenal. That's a big part of why he's been able to stick around. He's mature. He knows what he's supposed to do. He knows what's expected of him. And then, he made a number of plays when his number was called. So it's good to share that in him. There's other positions I won't get into, but you let some of those coaches deal with that and communicate with their guys that way.
Zach, kind of looking ahead to week 1, I think Mike Tomlin told the reporters out there that he wasn't planning on naming or announcing who their quarterback was going to be. How do you handle that? How does that kind of affect your preparation at all? Just curious to see kind of what your thoughts were as they still don't have one announced heading into week 1.
We'll be ready for the scope of their offense, what we've seen over the last couple of years and the preseason. You try to balance it all. At the end of the day, I think they've got a couple quarterbacks that are good athletes. They've managed the system really well over the course of this preseason. And so, we just got to be ready for the entirety of the offense. They've got really good weapons out there on the perimeter. They've got a running back who's really come onto the scene strong early on last year, and it continued over the course of the season. And so I thought he did a good job on the carries he got in this preseason as well. He's a physical back that you got to pay attention to. So we got to get ready for the entirety of their offense. I lost you, Dave. You got to hit unmute there.
Over the last few years, how many trades have been made after this point in time? I mean, are trades usually made right before, or is it right after? Cut down.
I'm not sure. I saw a lot of them went down today. The trade deadline extends, I think, all the way until late October. So
right.
You're putting me on the spot with that one. I don't have all the information on the history of the trade data in this league.
So, I mean, there are a lot of conversations still going on, though.
I'm sure there are. And again, our Duke and those guys are hard at work right now to make sure we do whatever it takes to make this football team better. And that might mean a lot happens. That may mean nothing happens, but those guys certainly be prepared for anything that comes our way.
Is everybody good?
Coach, I had one last question I wanted to ask about the culture of the team. So many first-year guys, rookies come in and sometimes feel like guys aren't really there for them. Your players have really, leaned into these young guys, showed them a lot, taught them a lot. So many of them credit the players for helping them. How much do you appreciate the professionalism of your current guys?
It's critical, and I think the veterans that know the things that we want to get accomplished, they know how crucial these young guys are going to be to that. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're taking your job, but they may need to take some snaps off you and play a role to help you. And so, I think that's true at every position that we have right now going. I think to get more specific, I think that D-line room does a really good job of bringing those guys along, Zach Carter and Jeffrey Gunner. And just as you watch those interactions and what they're learning from those guys, I think that's a really good example of those veteran D linemen knowing how critical these guys are going to be toward depth, because you're going to need it at some point. And that really, you can speak about our entirety of our team that way, but I'm really proud of the way that the guys have taken those guys under their arms.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Zach, it sounds like that's it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, great. Thank you all.
Thank you, Zach.
Exactly.